That down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, in talking about Sony's Spider-Verse, we're going to be talking about Craven a little bit later on, and I thought today would be an appropriate time to do this. You know, with all the talk going on with the failures of Madam Web and Morbius, and there are people out there who like Venom 3. I didn't personally, but I like the other two Venom films, whatever. And a lot of people, and this fake story going around that Sony's Spider-Verse is now ended. Guys, it's not. Just to be clear, it's not. They are taking a bit of a break because they're doing Spider-Man Noir, they're doing Beyond the Spider-Verse, and they're doing Spider-Man 4 with Marvel. Their plate's kind of full, but they're not ending it, okay? Just be clear. A lot of people, of course, understandably, saying, well, now's the time. Because like Sony just keeps losing so much money on these Spider-Verse movies. They're losing so much money that they're going to be forced to give Spider-Man back to Marvel. And I mentioned this on the show the other day, but I thought we should make an actual topic out of it. Guys, did you know this? Since 2018, when they put out Venom, so the modern era of this Spider-Man-less Spider-Verse, did you know that Sony, these movies are actually profitable? I know that sounds weird when you think about Morbius and Madam Web and what's to come with Craven, but it's true. They're profitable. As a matter of fact, they're really profitable. I put this little chart together. Let's take a look at this. So when talking about, let's leave Craven out of it for a second. In talking about the 7 films that Sony has, this Spider-Man movie types of things that Sony has put out since 2018. Venom 1, 2, and 3. Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. Madam Web and Morbius. In those 7 projects, grand total, they have made $3.18 billion at the box office. Those films combined. Now, once you take away the movie theater's cut from that 1.3 billion box office, you are left, the theater, after the theater cut, they've got $2.133 billion. That's how much they've made even after the theaters take their cut. When you add up the production budgets of all 7 of those movies, one of the things Sony has done smartly is kept the budgets reasonable on all these movies. Sony has never blown their heads when they've gone to the whole thing of let's spend $250 million making this. They've kept all their budgets reasonable. And the grand total of those 7 films, the budgets come to $711 million. You throw into that, they averaged out $75 million per film. Some spent more, some spent a little bit less, but they averaged out to $75 million in marketing per film, which is a total of $525 million in marketing. So when you take that $2.133 billion that they made after theatrical cut, you minus the 711 production budget, and you minus the $525 million marketing budget, these Sony movies have profited $900 million. Yeah.
Even with a loss, Craven doesn't affect that.
And even if Craven, which only costs about $100 and something million to make, even if Craven loses $150 million, they're still going to be $750 million profitable. Isn't that wild? So when people like, oh, Sony can't keep doing this. Actually, Sony's making money. They're not making MCU money. They're not making, Marvel kind of money. Absolutely, they're not. But even after Venom 3, Madam Web, Morbius, they are nearly $1 billion in profit from these 7 films. And then they minus some more after Craven, because Craven ain't going to make a lot. So let's say he loses $150 million. I think it costs about $120 million to make. So let's say they don't even make their marketing money. They lose more than that. Let's say they lose $150 million. There's still $750 million in profit in the last 6 years of making these Spider-Man movies. And that's not even counting like the $400 million check that got cut to Sony from the profits of Spider-Man No Way Home. Because remember, because they own the Spider-Man rights, they've got this sweet deal with Marvel where they're the distributor on all the standalone Spider-Man movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they make big cash from those.
Yeah.
Big cash.
And beyond, the Spider-Verse will be a profit.
And Beyond the Spider-Verse, whenever that comes, we'll talk about that a little bit later, is going to be profitable. That's going to make them more money. That's going to add to their profit total. So here's the thing. When you look at the fact that even as inconceivable, my best Vincini, that these Spider-Verse films since 2018 with Venom all the way up to Madam Web have actually made Sony profit. And you combine that with the fact that they don't even care if those movies make profit, because just by making those movies, they keep their existing deal with Marvel, where they collect these big, sweet checks from the standalone Spider-Man movies. Listen, there's no reality that Sony ever sells this back to Marvel. Let me rephrase. That Sony sells the Spider-Man rights back to Marvel at a price that Marvel would be willing to pay. Like if Marvel said to Sony, we'll give you $15 billion for all of our rights to Spider-Man back. Sony couldn't sign that contract fast enough. Of course they would. But Spider-Man's not worth $15 billion to Marvel, so they're not going to pay that. Anyway, that is why once Spider-Man Noir, Beyond the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man in the MCU Part 4 are all done, you are going to see Sony making more movies again to keep the rights. And all they need is like 1 out of 3 to hit it big. And they'll be profitable. They'll stay profitable.
And I wonder what they made from their licensing agreement for Spider-Man Noir. Because
they're making money from that.
From Amazon.
Yep.
So
They sign license because they can do that. So they can do these sub licenses and all this kind of stuff. Now, look, none of that is to speak that you shouldn't want Sony to give Marvel Spider-Man back. There's nothing wrong with you as a fan wanting them. I mean, maybe it would be best for everybody if they did, except for Sony. I'm just saying, when you actually sit back and look at the data, there is no reason in the world why, if somebody said, Sony, why don't you sell the rights back to Marvel? There's no reason in the universe that they would go, sure, not a chance. Anyway, guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, Miracle Made. Guys, it's hot outside and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. So if you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. There are just so many things that make these sheets so fantastic. We already mentioned the self-cooling properties for better quality sleep, but they're also self-cleaning. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. So go to trymiracle.com/Campea. That's TRYMIRACLE.com/Campea to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code Campea at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. So upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/Campea and use the code Campea to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Campea to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Chris, you had to look at that. I think it's fair to say probably at least the consensus among film fans is they would like to see Sony just lose the rights to Spider-Man and give them back to Marvel. I think that is clearly the consensus, but when you look at the data, do you see any real way that happens? Or, I mean, hey, Sony could go bankrupt at some point and then be forced to, but other than that, do you see a path for them just kind of shuffling the rights back to Marvel?
No, not at all. They like money. They're a business. They want money. But this is one of those things where it comes down to the difference between art and commerce sometimes, right? We as fans want to see excellent art. We want an excellent end product. And I'm sure Sony in their heart of hearts does too. Somebody there has to. But at the end of the day, if you can schluck out some crap, and still make money, you're not going to put that much effort in here. And you also have to remember that Sony is wildly, wildly successful with their Spider-Man games as well. The PlayStation games that they do, those stories and everything are incredible. Those, in my opinion, are some of the best Spider-Man films. When you just look at the cinematics of those, the stories are so good.
A side note, maybe you can answer this for me. I'm not familiar. I honestly, I don't know if the rights for Sony PlayStation to make those Spider-Man games are in any way tied to the movie rights. I simply don't know. Have you?
I'm genuinely not sure, actually.
Okay, yeah.
If anyone in the chat knows that too, I would love, love, love that, because I know it's more of like a PlayStation-y kind of situation. So I don't know.
Yeah. So it's theoretically it's possible they could theoretically give the rights to Spider-Man back to Marvel, but still maintain the game rights. They might be two separate things. They might be tied together. I honestly don't know. I'm saying I honestly don't know the answer to that.
But either way,
the chat's like,
off the
probably,
IP.
maybe.
I mean,
probably, maybe.
But either way, they're profiting off that IP.
Exactly. Yeah. It's one of those things where when I look to the games, and I know apples and oranges, there's different creative teams, there's different folks in there. I know that they can make good spider properties. I know they can. And sure, they also have the benefit of having the Spider-Men in them, as opposed to these tertiary characters or villains without the spider in there. But if they're making money, why would they give away a little cash cow? Sure, they're kind of a whipping boy at this point, where we all make fun of the content that's coming out, but they're laughing all the way to the bank. So why would they give it up?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like, well, for one thing, it shows you that as long as you keep your budgets within constraint in your marketing, you only really need a certain amount of big wins to offset the majority of your losses. That being said, Venom is dried up now. So they don't have that. And now they're fully reliant on Marvel releasing Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. And so the well is starting to dry up a little bit, and they are taking a step back to retool. So they have to be careful, because if they only fall down to one avenue of revenue, which is through Marvel's I want to say Tom Hardy, but Tom Holland Spider-Man, you get in a dangerous spot.
Oh,
you can't. But I mean, theoretically speaking, if they could collect a pure $400 to $500 million check for Spider-Man Marvel movies, and the price tag of collecting that $400 to $500 million check is, say, putting out 3 movies that each lose $100 million each.
Yeah.
You're still coming out ahead.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, and I wonder, well, I guess it has to be theatrical. I bet you Spider-Man Noir might not even count because it's going to Amazon.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't. That's why they have Beyond in production. But also, I think Spider-Man in the MCU, I think that counts towards their clock.
Well, they could. I still think they're on board for making a lower budget like Silk film and stuff like that. I do like that they're saying they want to retool their quality. And actually put some, because they could make lower budget films with these side characters that aren't just like awful ADR, crappy dialogue.
Well, look at the first Venom movie.
Yeah.
It's
like
fun.
those of us in this room, we really like the first. I really like the second one too, not as much as the first. I mean, and then of course the Beyond, the Spider-Verse movies, the Into the Spider. Those are Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, in my opinion, are the 2 best Spider-Man movies ever made. So clearly they can. And then they give us Kraven, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
It's just I feel like it's so cynical on Sony's part to put these things out, because to me at this point, this just tells me that with these last 3 films, they were clearly, this is basically the Fantastic Four from the 80s or the 90s, where
not counting Venom 3.
No, but for those 3 films, Morbius,
Madam Web,
it was
Kraven,
clearly just schlock they needed to keep for renewing the license, and it's so cynical, and it's like it slaps your audience in the face. That kind of pisses me off. But
like, I think Sony just was looking at the finish line and not looking at the journey. Like they released these movies, I think, maybe with the goal of having that team up where the Sinister Six, they were planning to do a Sinister Six.
I think they realized after Morbius that would never happen.
Yeah.
Like after Morbius failed so badly and the audience rejected it so hard, I think they knew they were never getting their Sinister Six.
Yeah, they just need to focus on each individual movie.
And you know what? That's the funny thing. Again, I'm not going to go into Kraven right now. We will save that until a little bit later in the show. Anyway, guys, question is for you. How surprising do you find this? That considering basically the rep of Sony and Spider-Verse and like Madam Web and Morbius and whatever, they're actually profitable. Actually significantly profitable. They're making money doing this. I don't know. However you think about this, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.